What's happening? Hold on, let me check this. What's happening? Okay, no, you hear paper, but I'm trying to make sure that my mic is right. And if you can hear me, please chime in. What's happening? What's happening? What's happening, blues people? It is 9:40 Central Time. I'm trying to get to you at 9, but I always tell you we're going to be here between 9 and 10. So we have a storm happening right now. So because there's a storm happening, just know if my service is going in and out, or if you're having issues receiving the stream, that's natural. Oh, natural. What's going on, good people? I got my coffee. I know coffee at 9:40. I want to be right, but it's not just any coffee, and it's in my African American Folklorist mug. You can get one too. I'll show. Matter of fact, you can get it right here while we're discussing it. Where is it? Here we go. Nope, that's not it. Where can you get it? Here we go. You can get it right there. The Jack Dappa Blues and the African American Folklorist mug. Now, in my mug, I am drinking what is called Happy Coffee. Something my wife sells. And trust me, it boosts your mental, boosts your mood. And if you know how to make coffee, it tastes darn good. All right, so now there's a few things that I want to do. Some home, I call it home cleaning, house cleaning. And in this special edition of Jack, and the reason why it's special because what we're talking about today is spirit work, hoodoo, and Black Southern cosmologies, Conjure, Pentecost, and the blues, and how these things. I don't even want to say intersect, right? I was talking to a scholar interviewing a scholar recently, actually, and as you all know, my African American folklorist of the month interviews are more conversational. And I was sharing that I don't like to use all the time the term intersection, not because I don't like the term, right? Because the term intersection, I think, has a lot of value, unlike the other terms I've told you before that I don't like. Um, but when it comes to certain things, the reason why I do not use, or I'm beginning to not want to use intersection, is because in my mind, intersection means things that are extremely apart. They're not adjacent. There's no connection coming together. That's in my mind. So now what we're talking about today, the reason why I give you that definition, because what we're talking about today, I don't necessarily want to use the term intersection because these things live together. They live together in our music, they live together in our interactions, in our behavior, in our agreed upon family. Hello, little Frosty. In our agreed upon family dynamics, communal dynamics, et cetera, so on and so forth. So tonight, we're going to be discussing spirit work, hoodoo, and Black Southern cosmologies, Conjure, Pentecost, and the blues. Now, how are we going to discuss this? What's going on, Brother Brian? Good evening to you as well. How are we going to discuss this? Share some things, some books, and then some songs, and then how this kind of fits into blues, what I call blues narrative. Okay? What I call blues narrative. Do you know what I mean by that? And if you don't, send me an email, drop me a line. I will be happy to do a episode on what I mean as blues narrative. Now, that would usually be something that goes on the Patreon, but I would put it on, I would do it as a live show like this and then archive it for our other streams like YouTube and Apple, iTunes, Spotify, and things like that. Because when what's happening, Don? How you doing, man? You know, the ladies were a little under the weather, but we're gonna catch up, okay, young brother? Patreon, I'm sorry, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and things like this. I want to put my definition of blues narrative there and what we're working with. So then, when we're having these discussions on these programs, those of you who rock with me, you'll know what we're talking about. Those of you who are new, I can direct you to that, and you know what I mean when I say blues narrative. So what I believe I will do next week is do an episode on the blues narrative. So now what I'm going to do, my good people, I'm going to put this in the chat for you all, okay? I'm going to put this in the chat for y'all because we have, I don't know how many of you all came to the master class where I had some great scholars come to discuss how to trace lineage, genealogy, and then discussions around that. But we'll have more of those master classes, but we'll also have We the Blues People panels. And in order for you to get first notification of that, please go to the link that I placed there and sign up, right? Follow that so that you'll know what's going on. All right. So now, with that being said, see it at the bottom, right? Why is that important with the blues? I kind of like this. I'm gonna put it back up. Why is this important with the blues, ladies and gentlemen? Now, real quick, those of you that are rocking with me on Instagram, remember, I'll look at my phone from time to time to see if you all are chiming in, but I have not been able to connect Instagram to our live chat feed, okay? So now, I'm gonna put this back up because I want you to take a look at this real quick because I like this. Spirit work, hoodoo, and Black Southern cosmologies, Conjure, Pentecost, and the blues, and what they have to do with each other. And for those of you who've been following me and listening to, I don't want to say my definition, but the how I put the blues into context, right? Where it's not just a aesthetic music, a technical music, but it is more of a lifestyle and a tradition, a culture, an engagement, and a behavior of the people, an exchange of the people. Well, folk belief practice has a lot to do with the blues, right? Not only do you hear it in lyrics, right? Like when Muddy Water in Louisiana Blues, which I have listed here, talks about he's going down to Louisiana to get him a mojo hand, and then he speaks about other different items, if you will, that conjure, evoke spiritual practice. Memphis Minnie has a song called Hoodoo Lady, Hoodoo Lady. I can't say it like she does. She's great, right? Then you have Lightning Hopkins, Hoodoo Blues, right? We can go down the list. So we already know lyrically. And you know, I have the books here, right? Memphis Minnie's book is right here where I can quote you some stuff. We also have. I read from this in one of our earlier broadcasts, Blues Legacy and Black Feminism. Ma Rainey, Bessie Smith, Billie Holiday speaks about it in their song, right? We already know the Honorable and the Great Zora Neale Hurston did more than just discuss Black Southern culture and hoodoo, right? But so it's not just in the song titles, and it doesn't just appear in the lyrics, but the entire body of the song and performance is ingrained with the tradition and culture of hoodoo, right? Of Pentecost, of all of the above, you know. I love this picture of Mama Marie Hicks Steele, who's a Conjure woman, as you can see from uh, Washington County, Georgia. She's also the great grandma of Inga Kimberly Brown, right? What else is she? So they describe her as Black and Cherokee. I find that very interesting that they describe her as Black and Cherokee because, you know, to my understanding, she's Cherokee, right? But she's Black. Do you understand what I'm getting to? Okay. So now, what does this have to do with anything? I did tell you that already. What does this have to do with anything? Well, blues is not secular. We spoke about secular music, slave seculars, remember? We spoke about slave seculars. We spoke that blues is connected to slave seculars, but when we speak of slave seculars and secular style music, it doesn't mean there's a removal of the sacred. If you remember, you can go back to one of our old shows to you can go back to one of our old shows when I was breaking down the makeup of blues and more so discussing what slave seculars is and were and what it pertains, right? The meaning behind it. So when we say secular, when it comes to Black traditional music expression, culture and engagement, it does not mean the omission, the removal, right? The lack thereof, the sacred, because sacred is there. Okay, it more so, at least in my understanding and comprehensions, it means the lack of a westernized thought of religion. But sacred is always there, and the blues is very sacred. The blues is sacred to me personally. If anyone's seen me perform throughout the years, or even give lectures, I've always made it very clear that to me the blues is very sacred because for me the blues, in some cases, at least for me, talking to uh, the highest being, the most high, about worldly issues and things of that nature, right? So now, even because a lot of people refer to the blues as devil's music. So let's look at this real quick. And this is kind of funny because the blues being called devil's music still doesn't make it secular. It still makes it supernatural and sacred because we're talking about an entity, another dimensional entity, a higher being, right? And then even when we speak about devil's music as it pertains to the blues, right? Well, devil's music as it pertains to being non-secular, but has to do with the sacred realm, right? Because the church, a sacred place, definitely acknowledges the devil, right? And those Bible scholars, students, uh, and readers of the Bible knows one of the most sacred of places is the kingdom of the Most High God, where in the book of Job, the devil appears in the meeting of God and the angels, and God speaks to him. What have you been doing? I've been roaming the earth. So however you slice it, right, that indicates supernatural, but more so, to my point, it indicates sacred. It indicates a folk belief. And then if you really want to get specific to, which is where I'm going, a term that is used, intersection, and for those that are just joining, I explain I don't dislike the word. I like the word intersection, but in this case, I don't think intersection is the right terminology, because all of these things live together, right? Conjure, hoodoo, Pentecost, Black Southern folk belief practice in the blues. Okay, so now what does that mean? So now think about prophecy, right? Oh, wait, before we get to that, we can also talk about this connection between the devil at the crossroad, Anansi, Papa Legba, right, and other out of worldly entities that is connected. So even the idea of being a good blues musician has to do with the supernatural and sacred world. And if you really want to break it down, the crossroads would be a very sacred place, right? Right. You know, so exactly, Mr. Baba Wilson, how are you, sir? He does tremendous work. So when you think of the crossroads, that's a secular, excuse me, that's a sacred place, because now you're talking about people going there conducting a ritual. Why are they conducting a ritual? Because the legend has it, they're going there to evoke, to conjure, uh, 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 in hopes of gaining supernatural skills with their instrument, right? And this has to do with the many folk beliefs that floats through Afro-Indigenous and even African spirituality that comes together in these spaces, right? And so we got a couple of books, but before we get to that, well, we're going to get to the books, right? We're going to get to the books. I want to get to this book first because I literally just met this Dr. Emeritus Chireau, Dr. Yvonne P. Chireau. I love this book, Black Magic, Religion and the African American Conjuring Tradition. There's so many um I mark up a lot of books. This is a book that I love, and I marked it up a lot, right? Um, so folk beliefs provided an explanation in one community for the loss of a child. That's just one thing I'm grabbing. Let me go to something that I actually, because I really love this book and how she breaks down. Check this out, okay? First person narratives of conjure traditions are best exemplified by the vast collections of supernatural charms, mystical experiences, spiritual formulae, and other raw materials collected in hoodoo, conjuration, witchcraft, root work, collected by Harry Middleton Hyatt in the 1930s and 40s. Okay, so she's explaining to us one of the places we can find legit first-hand stories, right? But what this book also does, and I have so many lines. Let me put this down for a minute because I have so many things marked and highlighted there. What this book actually does is it makes the case of the connection, and it's not only that book. We're going to get to it, right? And then we're going to connect it to the blues. But I think you know where I'm going with this, particularly those of you who are practitioners of the belief and of the music and the spiritual beliefs, right? But what Dr. Chireau actually does is she makes the argument that Pentecost, Black Southern church belief, is also infused or works with the Hoodoo culture. She starts the book out talking about Daughters of the Dust. My brother Tiger Blues, I think, brought that up last Sunday. That movie, which the movie very African centered. However, it has glimpses of the indigenous. I wouldn't say Afro-Indigenous, right? But it does set the space of 1902 Gullah community. I believe they're in St. Helena, right? I believe they're on the Ibu. It's not called a border. And all these words, Igbo is very important in this, right? Because the Igbo is the Hebrew, right? But so in the Daughters of the Dust, where the idea and the practice of hoodoo is ever present, but the practice of prayer is ever present, right? And then you go deeper into it. I don't know how many of you who has Southern spiritual beginnings, folk belief practices, right? Now, this could be anybody, but I'm speaking particularly to Black American Southern folk belief practices that comes out of the Pentecost. In most cases, why is that? Because we have another book here, Root Work and Hoodoo, Stories of Rootwork and Hoodoo in the Mid-South. And all of these books show, but this book discussed a lot about how the AME church and the more westernized, and the AME is the African Methodist Episcopal Church, right? Which would be considered the urban church, the church of those assimilated. And now I'm not making a blanket statement, but that's in some cases how it would be presented. The difference between a rural church and the urban, less ingrained, I guess, with traditional practices, right? So you in this book, it'll talk to you about. It makes the argument about the practices of hoodoo and Pentecost coming together, or same as Dr. Chireau says, but in a way where it had to be coded, because at one time practicing the culture of hoodoo was equivalent to arson, rape, and things of this nature. And it's and these extreme charges were perpetuated in Black spaces, right? Now, I want y'all to, man, I'll put my email here. my African American Folklorist email here because I want you all to receive our very first special digi issue. Okay. And that special digi issue, let me see if I could pull that up. Give me a couple of seconds, y'all. I'll keep talking while I'm looking for it, right? But what's important is it presents those who practice hoodoo today. I don't. Okay, I can't find it right now. It was I got it. Okay. Oh no, that's not the actual cover. I changed the cover, y'all. I thought that was the cover. Hold on. I found the cover though. I did find the cover. So what I'm gonna do while I'm talking to you, this is live. While I'm talking to you, I'm going to export the cover, and then I'm going to drop it in our show, in the slides for the show, so you can take a look at it, because this is a issue that I think you all need to take a look at, so you can understand what I'm discussing, right? Sister Hess Love curated this issue. I think this is something that you all need to take a look at, for the simple fact that, again, it would explain. Well, I don't want to say explain, right? I don't want to say explain, but it will give you, there we go, real time examples of what we're discussing, right? Because you have folks who misunderstand what hoodoo is. Hoodoo's actually a practice, cultural practice. Well, maybe not a practice, but it's a culture, right? And it's definitely, well, I don't want to say definitely, but it is separate from voodoo, right? So I want you all to see, boom, here we go. Imagine that. I did all that while we're having this conversation. All right. So this is the issue I want y'all to check out, right? Brother Tiger Blues, what's happening with you? So here, I'm going to give you the email to contact me at. So I can send you. Obviously, donations are always welcomed. If you know, donations are always welcomed. Okay. So this Hoodoo Heritage Month, it was sponsored by the Kentucky Arts Council, and what we did was bring a whole bunch of poems, short stories, and personal narratives, so you can have expressions, right? Expressions. What's happening with you? What's happening with you? Okay. So now, with all that being said, what we're discussing, for those who are just coming in, just to stay on point: spirit work, hoodoo, and Black Southern cosmologies, Conjure, Pentecost, and the blues. So now I was talking to you about this particular book that was making the argument of, ultimately, Tony Kail interviewed practitioners of hoodoo, but does a good job setting up the tone by presenting not even the idea, the actuality that this folk belief, which is ingrained in Black Southern life, which incorporates prayer and church and different things like this, was attacked by what we would call, I don't want to say just assimilated Black folk and things of this nature, but just those that were not of the what we call traditional folk experience, right? So when we talk about the blues people, and then we talk about those who are not necessarily the blues people were still practicing. So let me find you a nice excerpt to try to get you started here. Okay. Dr. Claude Jones was arrested by Mississippi authorities for running a hoodoo hospital in the crater of the Delta on Sunday, October 21st, 1934, in Jackson, Mississippi. As a spiritual doctor and root worker specializing in African American healing practices, Jones created a clandestine spiritual sanctuary for local Black men and women who struggled with sickness as well as spiritual curses. The local press described the activities of the hospital and Dr. Jones in tales of crystal balls, witchcraft, and mystic potions. As usual, what actually went on in the facility was very different from what was reported in the outside press. So, what does that mean? What does that mean? And how does that have to do with the blues? Because the blues is an offshoot of this practice, because those who participated in church and Pentecost in hoodoo, told you she has a song called Hoodoo Lady, right? They were ostracized by society well, not even to a degree. They were looked at a particular point, right? At a particular, so I'm sorry. When I was talking to you about this particular book, I want to show you. Okay. So now, right now, we're talking about stories of root workers and hoodoo in the Mid-South. And then there's another book by Jim Haskin, which is Voodoo and Hoodoo, the craft as revealed by traditional practitioners. So now we're talking right now about Tony Kail, stories of root workers and hoodoo in the Mid-South. Okay. And what we're discussing is that there was a propaganda campaign, if you will, based on what I just read to you, of a root doctor and doctor who had what was considered a hoodoo hospital in Jackson, Mississippi, right? Who was helping local folk with physical ailments and spiritual ailments. Okay? Now, you also have to remember, well, you don't have to remember, but when we speak about the church, and that's why I always mention, Pentecost, juxtaposed hoodoo, because when we speak about the Holy Ghost, when we speak about the blood, when we speak about prayer oil, right? These are the things, these are the practices that we're discussing. Now, the irony and I'm going to get personal. That's why I took the picture off and get a little personal with you all. I grew up in the Pentecostal church, right? And you could say there's some in Black Methodists and there's some in Black Baptists, but to my understanding, what I'm learning, the practice and spiritual beliefs in these denominations are not all the same. The rules and stuff like this are not all the same. However, in the Pentecostal church, and there's a reason for that, I may get to, there's a reason for that. But before I get to that, in my personal experience growing up, right, on the one hand, the women in my family saying, hey, and men, don't eat from this person, don't let that person touch you. When women do each other's hair, don't put my hair there, give me my hair back. The idea of brushing front door, the spirit bottles, the chimes, all these things and that was going on that you would imagine that are being told in one particular church not to do that and not to deal with that. But this is cultural behaviors in our homes, in my home, my grandmama's home, both of them, and my family's home. We're practicing these things while going to church, but we're also putting on prayer oil to this day, right? Then we want to talk about the dancing in circles and the catching of the Holy Ghost, right? And then in catching the Holy Ghost, how the body gyrates and jumps up and down, and then you have the ushers or just members of the church, right, coming together as in a circle, right, and then while kind of I don't want well, it is ritualistic, right, and I think the issue is, like the word ignorant, ritualistic, evoke, conjure has bad connotations, but it is very significant in the life of prayer warriors. Now, what is Brother John saying? What differences have you seen in how Black denominations of Pentecostal, Armenian Baptists respond to? That's a great question. I'm gonna leave that up for a minute, right? Now, just before the reason why I leave that up, so I won't go on a tangent and forget your question. Bringing this back to the blues, when you think about Sun House, you think about Muddy Waters. I mean, how many other we already, we spoke about Zora Neale Hurston. I mean, there's so many folk, Howlin' Wolf, Charlie Patton, Mississippi Fred McDowell, Rube Lacey. And mind you, while these folks these folks come out to church, Papa Staples, not only they come out to church, but they go back to the church, right? And remember, Son House was a preacher, a pastor. Rube Lacey becomes a pastor. Fred McDowell was playing in his church, right? Now, in a Pentecostal church, my personal experience. Now, John, let me be very clear. This is my personal experience, right? Because what what I've come to learn of the Bible Belt Baptist culture, it is extremely strict. I was so I come out of a Pentecostal church in New York that has Southern and West Indian values, which are Caribbean values, which to me I find very ironic, considering growing up and there being internal turmoil between Black Americans and Caribbean Americans, as Black Americans are always like the bottom of the totem pole, but the cultures, the vernaculars, the vocal phrasing and behaviors are almost identical, right? Southern Black and Caribbean Black, right? With that being said, the churches I grew up in, women had positions of power. Hoot and hollering was the only way. And if you weren't doing it that way, you wasn't in the spirit, right? Now, I did some research and some work and some interviews in on the Baptist Church of the South, at least in the region that I'm in. And I've come to find out that not all Black churches are the same, right? So, and which is a given, but I don't know how much they would receive the blues within the halls. I know in Pentecostal churches, I've performed what I would call gospel blues. It's a blues song, but not vulgar or sexual, right? I will say though, one thing that and you know something, when it comes to AME and higher echelon Baptist churches, those would be considered, and this, I'm kind of making a blanket statement, but those would be more of the folk who would leaving the blues behind, and leaving behind a certain way of life that pitted Black folk in a particular lens, right? So I have a book over here. I can't think of the name of it right now, but it's about the migration. And one of the families in this book was adamant about leaving all that, what they call backward and backwood stuff behind. And they want to go and go to the Midwest, go to the West, Northwest, or go to Northeast, whatever, anywhere to get away from that backwood and backwards South. And a good portion of those folks found their way to an AME church. And now, when we speak of AME church, let me see if I can find this while I'm on the phone. While I'm alive with you real quick, because here we have a situation where in this particular book they discuss how a pastor of the AME church went to Africa, came back, started this church, and was on a crusade to stop a particular what we would call Hoodoo Pentecost church, because he fully believed that folks shouldn't be practicing this, right? And then a lot of our blues songs come out of here, right? Memphis Conjure. I'm really trying to find. If I don't find that particular story right now, I will put the page number and everything in the. I'll put the story in the feed. I will like to read this to you, but in Mississippi, home of blues legend Tommy Johnson, authorities scoffed at the use of conjure-related practices. Why did he have to use the term Tommy Johnson? This is coming from this book. We're bringing back to the relations of blues. Why is Tommy Johnson important in this conversation? It's something that we started out talking about earlier. Well, everybody talks about Robert Johnson selling his soul to the devil. Tommy Johnson was actually the first documented to either make that claim or that claim be made of him. So in his town, there's reports of conjuring. Why is that important? Because the misnomer of conjuring and hoodoo being a worship of witchcraft and devil worship, which we find out that is not the case. There are many folk of the hoodoo culture that pray and believe in the Most High, if you will. Okay. Any questions? Any thoughts? I show this picture a lot when I speak about this for the simple fact that this is a Pentecostal church. Now, mind you, that's not the only church, but based on my research and my personal experience, and then in the books that I'm sharing with you, these things are referenced, right? Matter of fact, interesting story. Let me see if I can find this brother. This is Mr. Ed Murphy, a picture from a book called Folk Beliefs of African Americans in the Southern United States. Right? It says from the Puckett collection. The gentleman's name is Newbell Niles Puckett, Dr. Newbell Miles Puckett, right? The irony on the back of the book, it says Old South Books, right? Thank you. Apostolic is another one. Thank you. Apostolic is another one. Matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, one of the first churches that integrated, if you will, what we could consider the gospel and hoodoo was, I think, an apostolic church. Please, Baba Wilson, let me know if I'm incorrect, okay? So the reason why I point out that it says Old South Books, because this book, Folk Belief of African Americans in the Southern States, which was written by Dr. Newbell Niles Puckett. Now, I'm going to take this picture off for a minute, but he's in the book. This gentleman is in the book, is why I'm showing him. This is the book, okay? Now, it took me, it's hard for me to get through this book because of the time it was written, and the scholar who wrote it was a white scholar of his time. Okay, so let me just give you let me give you the years this was written so you understand what I mean. Okay. Where is it? Because if I'm not mistaken, this is in the 20s. So the book is necessary. The book is necessary. But copyright 1926. Okay? So the book is necessary. Scholarship is necessary, but you got to understand it is the product of the scholarship from a white scholar of that time. So the language could be jarring to a non-white reader, okay? In some cases. But I think, like everything else, it is very important to have an understanding. This is the book you're talking about, brother? So I'm going to read you an excerpt. First of all, what he says is the reality of the belief, right? Of the folk belief, because what they're discussing is, and I'll take it back a little bit. The Sea Island, this is what he says, chapter 11, Voodooism and Conjuration, okay? The Sea Island Negroes, copy. The Sea Island Negroes have their medicine men or guffer doctors, and in the tobacco belt of Virginia, professional trick doctors exist who make their living solely from witchcraft. From personal experience, I can testify the same as holding true of Mississippi, Alabama, and Louisiana. Now, the two books that I told you about, Dr. Chireau and Tony Kail, they speak of Mississippi, Louisiana, and particularly New Orleans, because New Orleans, for a lot, is ground zero for spirit cooking, if you will. Right? I know, now I'm gonna get back to this. I'm gonna read this in a second. But for me, I never, driving down there my entire life. Louisiana through Mississippi is one of my people's come from Mississippi, Louisiana. Going down there, driving, and there's a bridge, and I remember driving from North Carolina with my oldest brother, and bless the dead, Kasi, and we drove from North Carolina. We drove through Alabama. Did we drive through Alabama? No, that was the bus. Sorry, we drove through Mississippi. And then we come through this bridge. It was a very long bridge, very low, and the sky was violet, and the sky and the water met, and you felt like you were going through a portal as you crossed from Mississippi to Louisiana, right? And then I spoke to Mr. Terry Harmonica Bean a couple of summers ago when I was doing a series of interviews in the Mississippi region, as well as Alabama and Kentucky, and in the Delta region. I was doing a series of interviews in the Delta region, and I was talking to Mr. Terry Harmonica Bean, who could have, damn sure, if he wasn't, he was just close to being a professional baseball player before injury, but is an even better bluesman. And we were talking about the wells in Mississippi. Y'all know what the wells in Mississippi is? I'm gonna leave that there. Hold on, let me check Instagram real quick, and then I'll continue reading this, because again, I don't get anything on here from Instagram. So if y'all are talking to me on Instagram and I'm not responding, please don't take that personal. It is not personal. It is simply because I cannot see any all right. Are we even on there? I see some folk there. All right. All right. So I don't know if y'all are talking. All right. I was just checking. Okay. So yeah, we spoke about the portals in Mississippi. So a lot of these books speak to they bring up New Orleans and these different places of Black or Afro-Indigenous or Black Southern American experience that culminates into blues, into music, right? All of it is not blues. It could be spiritual, could be field hollers, what have you. Okay, so look, now I'll go back and start from personal experience. I can testify the same as holding true of Mississippi, Alabama, and Louisiana. And informants from other states indicate the condition as existing in all parts of the rural South. Now, I have to stop real quick. And this is what I mean by language. in the discipline and field of folklore studies, and I'm believing the same in ethnomusicology and cultural anthropology, and all of the sibling disciplines of the like. We don't necessarily use the term informants anymore. That is a old school term, okay? So forgive me. So now, with that, I give you that to give context to reality of the belief, is what he says. And then what he says is the Negro indicates this belief in conjuration even in his songs. So that's really where I was going with this. I know it went all the way around and came back. But where I was going with this was the fact that, again, when we're talking about Black Southern traditional music, whether, well, the blues specifically right now, but this is all of traditional music, but blues specifically right now, it is not just a theorized progression of a series of notes and things of this nature, right? These songs, these feels, these performances are informed by something, right? It comes from somewhere. Spirit work, hoodoo, and Black Southern cosmologies are a big part, because then now you're talking about the practices being reflected in the external, if you will, expression. And so what do I mean by external expression? Through song, through playing. And then Leroy Jones made it very clear that our songs, our performance, our celebration is praise, because that's what we did on whatever continent we're indigenous to, as I speak at this moment about the diaspora, right? So I'm gonna give you some of these lyrics, okay? Keep way from me hoodoo and witch. Lead me pa from the pole house gate, okay? Now here on the bottom it goes, old Satan am a liar and a conjurer too. If you don't mind, oh, out, he'll conjure you. I mean, I stopped and looked, because if you understand Black vernacular and song, there's a young brother I want y'all to follow, Bobby Brax. He's going to be writing for the African American Folklorist magazine and platform, and he speaks about these little phrases and folklore legends as and stories and I don't want to say fables, but as survival tools, kits, and lessons, right? So when you listen to and then you have a Dr. Arnaud Pollard, you have my good homie Dr. Raymond Somerville. They do a lot with proverbs, right? African proverbs, African American proverbs. You'll hear a lot of these things in Black traditional music, in lyrical form. And a lot of times you may not know until later on you're realizing that it's connected to a practice, a folk belief practice of hoodoo, of apostolic, of Pentecost, right? Now, I just want to read this one piece also, okay? In a rural Negro church near Columbus, Mississippi, there was a constant change of ministers because of the reliance of the congregation upon jacks. Jacks are charms wrapped up in red flannel, okay? So now, what does that mean? What does that mean? Why is that important to what we're discussing? Because what I'm trying to show it with that point is that the belief of the hoodoo belief, the folk practice culture, was also in the church. So now those of us that come from it, but come from it through a church community, again, me personally, a Pentecostal church community, then there's, the others that fall in line. We're practicing these things thinking it is Christian practice. And then finding out, depending on how and where and who and at what time and how invested you are, finding out this is part of our original traditional practices, right? Yes. Let me check out my now y'all gotta forgive me. I always check out my notes to make sure, see where I'm at with it. You know what I'm saying? Always check out my notes to see where I'm at. Oh, I don't want to forget about this book here, Mojo Workin by Dr. Katrina Hazzard-Donald. Okay, now this book here outlines how hoodoo developed as a formal system. Now she roots it back to Central and West Africa in African cosmology, which a lot of folks do. Don't get me wrong, and I'm not saying that a major belief of it doesn't come from there, but there's also a major belief in Afro-Indigenous here on the Americas, right? Copy. So I have the book here. So let me see. And I'm, you know what? I'm happy that you brought up she's a dancer, right? I'm happy you brought up she's a dancer, because there's one thing that we have to make this connection when it comes to the blues. There's a lot of these blues dancing communities all around the United States, and I love them and I'm friends with a lot of them, but we have to understand and really call to the forefront that there's a separation in casual social dancing that they were doing, whether it was entertainment or competition or what have you, and then the ritualistic conjuring, prayer, praise, evoking dances that accompany hoodoo culture and the practice of Pentecost, apostolic, as you say, and other Black Southern church folk beliefs, right? And I spoke about this a little bit earlier when I brought up prayer dancing, in the space of catching the Holy Ghost. But it's not just catching the Holy Ghost. There's actually prayer dancing, where in these dances you're looking to evoke or conjure up something, right? Exactly, right? So exactly. So this is why I'm so happy you brought up that she's a great dancer, because we tend to forget the connection dancing has to the blues and to our sacred folk practices. And I'm intentionally using the term folk practices because I want to make a distinction between the dominant, more popular, and in some cases Western, and in other cases African AME religious practices. Okay, making a distinction is not degrading or disrespecting. I'm just making a distinction based on the topic we are discussing this evening. Right? All right, where we at? Okay. I want to make sure well, first make sure I'm on time with it. I did tell you all about I told you all about Hoodoo, our special issue curated by Hess Love. Oh, I do want to say that one of the central roles of Mojo Hand by Dr. Katrina Hazzard-Donald is that Hoodoo was and remains a sacred African American spiritual tradition. And that also is what the special digi issue of the African American Folklorist Hoodoo Heritage Month also is a central role, letting you know that this is still a very significant and relevant practice in the Black American community today, which falls in line to not just blues, right, but old time string music, because there's a lot of Black banjo players that are deeply rooted in Hoodoo, African spirituality, and even Carib and Haitian spirituality, which is all kind of the same thing because it comes out to diaspora, right? Freeman Vines, I want to talk about real quick. That's not Freeman Vines. Sorry, y'all. This photo's from Tim Duffy. Mr. Freeman Vines has passed away. He has a project out still through Music Maker, Hanging Tree Guitars, right? That's one of the guitars there. I had the opportunity to interview Mr. Freeman Vines. His name is Freeman Vines, Hanging Tree Guitars. Okay? So first I want to tell you why it's called Hanging Tree Guitar. Because this brother, whose spirit is very strong, because he was in tune with the other side. He was in tune with Hoodoo. He was in tune with Voodoo. He was in tune with, if I believe it's called a spirit string. So you can walk through dimensions and portals. Because he shared stories with me about this in our interview. What I'll do is I will put the interview, not in this chat, but when it's over, I'll circle back and put it in the chat. So what I don't, saying he was inspired may not, exactly. Saying he was inspired may not be strong enough, because I'm one to believe that the ancestors, because he was able to, he broke the barrier of dimensions. Ultimately, he broke the barrier of dimensions and was able to do things and speak to folk. And what he ultimately began doing was chopping wood and carving and making guitars from trees that Black folk was lynched on. He's passed away, and I want to take a moment to celebrate his life and his work, particularly in this episode, because this dude really understood, and I would go as far as saying experience multi-dimensional travel. Like, he lived the life like Enoch, almost. If you understand what I mean, Enoch. Then he was no more. You know the story of Enoch, and that he just kind of, you know, and there's other things, but I'll let him tell it. I don't want to tell his story, but what I do want to do is celebrate his life and works. Okay, let me just make sure that I touched most of the stuff that I want, and I also want to make it very, very, very clear when I speak diasporic, and I make it clear to mention Afro-Indigenous. Because Afro-Indigenous just means indigenous to every continent, but I'm speaking particularly of the Choctaw, the Creek, the Seminole, right? The Muskegee, where these rituals, these practices also comes from them, and I would say Cherokee as well, because remember, Mama Marie is described as a Black Cherokee, but they say she's Black and Cherokee. Okay? So we just got to understand what's going on here. Do you understand? So you understand, because all of our grandmamas was. We see. I'm gonna do another show on that. I'm gonna do another show on that, and I speak about this often. Where Charlie Patton has the song "Down the Dirt Road Blues." He's talking about leaving the Jim Crow South to go to the reservation, but we also have to speak about Memphis Minnie, who does the song about the Chickasaw woman. But we also have to speak about Son House, who speaks specifically and describes the red woman. Now, I think you guys remember I spoke about one of his songs when he was talking about colorism and where he fits in the conversation of colorism. But if you listen to other songs, he says, "My woman is red." Who is red? He speaks specifically about an Indian woman in a couple of his songs, right? So we have to understand that if you want the actual stories of the Black South, the blues is where you start. The folk belief practices is where you get these confirmations. And this is why we're pretty much talking about hoodoo this evening, and how hoodoo, there you go, and how hoodoo and blues and Black spiritual culture of the South, it's not even an intersection. These things, they live together. It's prevalent. However, I will say, just like the coded songs of slavery, coded songs of folk spiritual belief, because you have to remember the dominant society was imprisoning folks. Is that how you say it? Throw them in jail for practicing their traditional belief, our traditional belief, if you are blues people. Okay? So, wait, hold on. Let me see. I just want to make sure I'm not. And let me just give you a quote from Freeman Vines. Some guitars got a spirit, and some spirits come with a guitar. Freeman Vines. He understood. I really didn't. I don't have the time tonight to go so deep, and I don't have all the information, obviously, right? But there's people that I could have had come and rap with us to kind of give some more information to it, right? Right. Exactly. Okay. Let's see. I did speak about Robert Johnson this evening because I think I spoke about him a lot. I speak about Son House all the time, and Charlie Patton. Now, I know you all heard "Got My Mojo Workin." Coco Taylor has a song, "Voodoo Woman," right? And I mentioned earlier Lightning Hopkins' Hoodoo Blues. So these are some songs that you all can go listen to yourselves and see the connection, right? Now, check it out, family. Check it, blues people. Some of you shared it with me already, but what stories of folk belief, conjure, sacred blues do y'all have? Now, so you can send it to that email if you want me to share it, if you want me to post it on the Dappa Blues website or the African American Folklorist website. And if it's not a story of folk belief, conjure, or sacred blues that is yours, what have you heard in your folk community? Okay? What have you heard in your folk community? Okay? Okay? Because ultimately, you know what you come in here for. We are reclaiming back our story and telling it. And I encourage and implore everyone. I don't care your denomination. I don't care your ethnicity. I don't care your racial makeup. Whoever you are, someone, whatever folk group you belong to, make sure you document, preserve, and conserve your people's story. White, black, yellow, red, green, orange, polka dot, whatever you are, okay? Wherever you come from, okay? So now, remember, go to our Eventbrite page. I have the link there. You want me to put the link up again? I'll put the link up one more time. Let me grab the link. And I want you all to head here, okay? That way you can stay in tune with some of the events that you can participate in, okay? Now, who sent Kofa at? Talk to me. Is that is that how to follow you, Baba Wilson? Because if that's how to follow you, then I'll definitely post that so the folks can know where to get at you. And I have the email. So if you want me to send some of the stuff to you directly, just shoot me a line and tell me what it is that you need. Okay. Also, good folk. Got it. Okay. Also, good folk. So you can go here to Jack Dappa Blues to sign up for our email, to be on our email list, so you can get other great news, not just the events, but all the great news. Okay. Sign up for become a paid member of Jack Dappa Blues Patreon. That way you'll get the behind the scenes of some groovy stuff that's going on, right? So I did an ethnographic, I guess it's documentary, ethnographic documentary called How I Hear the Blues. So this is how I hear the blues. It's what I call sensory cinema. As a paid member of Patreon, you'll be accessible to that, and then how I will tighten it up and what we're doing with it. I'm working on and about to record the African American Folklorist and the Blues album, and you can get more, I guess, behind the scenes information, which I like to call my blues blog, and different things that I speak about more in detail. I would also tell you to go there so you can check this out. Jack Dappa Blues Reflexive Podcast. This is where I discuss my experience in the field and the discipline. What I think I did good, what I think I could do better, what I think I did wrong, what I don't understand, what I do understand, or if I'm calling some shit out, that needs to be addressed. Got it. Got it. Got it. Got it. All right. So that get with me, follow with me. Y'all know what time it is. Every Sunday we are here, really putting blues in the context of not just music or not just being found in the music, because the blues is what I like to call the fulcrum of the Black American experience, right? And so this evening we discussed I wanted to spirit work, hoodoo, and Black Southern cosmologies, Conjure, Pentecost, and the blues. But how we discussed it was more, how, some functionalities, how it's found in the blues. Just give us some context of it's the landscape and soundscape, right? And then what text you can read. I would also read Zora Hurston's Mules, which I have right here. You may not be able to see it because it's under my name. Zora Hurston's Mules definitely speaks to it. And I got a couple of other books over here that I use that I'll let you know. Matter of fact, I think I was supposed to put a book list together. All right, I'll begin collecting some stuff. And you know what? I'll figure out how to do it so it won't just be me giving you all a book list, but us together. Thank you, Little Frosty. But us together kind of creating this library, this collection of Black experience and voices. You know what I'm saying? There you go. There you go. Hold on. I bought it for. Wait, let me take this off. I have to take this off. Trust me. I did buy it though. I did buy it, y'all. I did buy it. Okay. That's a great one. You know, her work was based around Black Southern culture that was very deep dived, I guess, into the Conjure world. I'm trying to see if there's any book I can grab for you real quick on the spot. Oh, here's another one. This will be the last one. So I won't drop nothing. Here's a good book. All right. Absolutely. I'm gonna share that. Absolutely. Absolutely, good brother. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So, as per usual, it is always a highly valued blessing sitting here, congregating with my peoples and my tribe as the blues people, discussing blues narratives. All right. So we'll be back next week. Again, reach out to me if there's any particular topic that you want to touch base on. And sign up. Come back next week. All right. And then also go back to YouTube, become subscribe to the YouTube and all the other streaming services and everything, so that you can keep up with these programmings. In the event that you've missed one, you can always go back and check it out. All right. You got it, good brother Brian. Thank you for rocking with us. Thank you for rocking with us. All right. So I'll see y'all next Sunday. Don't ask me what we're talking about yet because I don't know. But I hope this helped a bit, okay? I hope this helped a bit. I hope it gives you context that the blues comes from the blues people. And these are some of the things that inform it, all right? Take care. Hopefully you have a great week. All right. Actually, no. I'm going to evoke and conjure you all of you are going to have a great week. All of you are going to have a great week. I know I did my Jedi mind trick. But all right, take care, y'all. Have a good night.